Hello, everybody. This is Mark, and it is January 27th. And because we had a snowstorm on Sunday, and because Virginia, although a very pleasant place other ways to live, is not very good at removing snow, I have a free day today. So it's time to cut a video. So I hope you enjoy this. Today's video is going to be about paper in Sumi-e and what kind of paper you should use. This is mostly geared towards people who are new Sumi-e students, and I will address most of my remarks at that level. But there might be something for an advanced person to learn about. Plus, if you have experience with these things or have recommendations, please put them in the comments. So today we're going to be talking about paper in Sumi-e. The kind of Sumi-e that I teach is freestyle Sumi-e, which is basically using an animal haired brush of some sort and ink and sometimes some colors as well. And they all behave differently on different papers. And for brand new students, it's kind of hard to understand perhaps what the papers will do. And a lot of that is going to be fixed by practice, but you're going to come across some different papers, and it will be good to know how the paper is affecting your artwork. So today we're going to be talking about the different kinds of paper. The first paper that you will encounter when you're a new student is going to be Sumi-e Sumi-e practice paper. It comes, excuse me, it comes in a pad like this. This is a big pad, but it comes in various sizes. This is Yasutomo brand, and it is, well, actually, it's imported by Ito, but uh, it, it oftentimes is sold under the name Yasutomo or by Yasutomo, and it's a Japanese made paper, and it is a good quality paper, but it also comes in rolls as well. The rolls and the pads probably cost about the same. The good thing about the pads is you can rip off one sheet very easily. Never, if you're a new student, keep the paper in the pad while painting because the ink will bleed through. The first time I took a Sumi-e class, I found that out the hard way. So I'm painting away, and the ink was penetrating down into other pieces of paper. Um, if you do a roll, a practice roll like this, open it up, uh, open it up like so, and then you're going to unroll it, and you're going to discover, in fact, that's true of this paper too, that one side is a little bit smoother and slicker, and the other side is got a little bit more of texture. And the side with the texture is the back side, and the front side on the practice papers is smoother. And we paint on the front of the paper for the reason that the ink is going to glide better on the surface of that kind of paper. Incidentally, if you're doing calligraphy, it's the same thing. The calligraphy paper also comes with one side a little bit smoother than the other. So always be aware of that when you're first using Sumi-e paper. Um, that's the first thing. So feel. Now, the next thing is if you are using a roll, I see my beginning students oftentimes just unrolling it, and they keep unrolling it while they paint, which is okay if you're going to be doing a scroll, but most of you are not going to be doing a scroll. So instead, what you have to do is you have to take your brush, you take a little bit of water, and you will draw a line. Let's see if I can get this on the camera. I can switch over to the other camera soon, but see, I made I made a line in the paper with water, and then I just separate it by tearing it off. It's very easy to tear off once the paper is wet. And that's how you make a small piece of paper in Sumi-e without needing a scissors. So here is a piece of practice paper, probably also Yasutomo or Ito Japanese paper. And this paper is very smooth. And this paper is, in fact, a very good paper for uh, beginners, but it's also not a bad paper to just use in general because it is got a little bit of sizing in it, and we're going to be talking about the importance of sizing in a little bit. But it also it so it unless you're truly out of control with your water in your brush, and I have got a video on that, so look for that. This paper does work. It's relatively inexpensive, comparatively inexpensive. So it's an all right paper to use. So I'm going to, when I go through these, I'm going to be doing little demos on each type of paper. So the first paper is the Japanese practice paper that comes in rolls or it comes in pads. The next thing that you will sometimes run across, especially online these days, but there are companies that sell papers such as this, but I do know Amazon and probably Temu and Rakuten sell paper as well. And this paper is called single shun paper, and single shun paper is spelled with an X, so it's XUAN. Shun paper is also suitable for beginners because it's really inexpensive. This paper is extremely inexpensive. I think I can get a 400 pack for about $30 right now. You never know if there's going to be tariff increases, but in the meanwhile, relatively inexpensive paper for practice. This paper is it's large size. You can cut it in two in the same manner if you want to work a little smaller, but it's a nice size paper, and the quality is actually quite good also. The slight disadvantage to single shun paper is that it doesn't have any sizing in it at all. So that means if you are doing if you have water control issues, you have to if you're going to do something skillful, you have to control your water very carefully on it. And the other thing is the single shun paper is it's a little bit thinner than some of the other papers that we're going to talk about, and even a little thinner than the practice paper I was just telling you about. And so, if you do a masterpiece on it, it's a little bit more difficult to mount because when it's re-wet, the fibers are comparatively weak. It's a little bit easy to tear. It's a little bit difficult to apply the glue. And so if you're going to do a masterpiece, this one takes more care. Um, so for beginners, I actually kind of recommend this because you can get a mountain of it, more or less. And you're going to be doing, even though we love you all, you're going to be doing some bad art until you learn to control your brush and get acclimated. You might as well go ahead and use the shun paper. Occasionally, you're going to get some very fun, good effects with it. But then you take it up again when you become very good. When you become a very good person, maybe at the teaching level or at the exhibition level, it's a good paper to come back to because by that point you've conquered all of your water issues. And single shun paper's big benefit is that the when you put the brush down, the ink comes off the brush very easily, and you get beautiful gradations. The same with the colors that you use as well. So this is called single shun, and this paper is quite nice. Next paper that we will occasionally run across is a paper called semi-size. Semi-sized paper made in China. I have this brand. I don't read Chinese. I read some Japanese, but I don't read Chinese as well. But this paper I do know is half-sized paper. What is sizing? Sizing is the same thing they put in your shirt to make it a little crispy at the laundromat, and it is used to make the paper a little bit firmer. And so it's basically starch that's put in the paper. The effect of the starch has a good aspect and an unfavorable aspect. The good aspect is that the water will be easier to control because the starch is in the paper. The water in the that's in the brush does not penetrate the paper very fast. Therefore, you can push the ink around a little bit on the surface before it penetrates, and you don't have so much trouble with bleeding. Therefore, on this paper, you can do something if you want to emphasize lines and crisp shapes. This paper is going to be better. Again, I will show this in a bit. The next kind of paper is one step further. The paper that I have, I hope I can find it. It's yes, here it is. Okay, this paper is fully sized paper. Fully sized paper um, is a paper that's got, it's actually it looks thin, but in fact, because it has a lot of sizing in it, it's going to allow me to actually move the water and the ink and the watercolor around on the surface of the paper before it sinks in for quite a while. So the techniques you can get with the fully sized paper are somewhat different. You can do an art form called Ganbi, which is a little bit similar to Western watercolor. You might put your line work in and then put layer after layer after layer of color on, and that would give you a Ganbi painting. So that kind of paper is not used quite so often for the freestyle sumi-e. It is used instead for Ganbi. I have been experimenting with that kind of paper with Japanese mineral pigments, and that's also something you can use this paper for. Um, and then I will mention the next thing. There's pads of paper you can get. Pads of paper include um, Japanese made product called gasenshi, and gasenshi paper is thick paper. It's quite substantial, thick paper. And this paper is about double the thickness of the practice paper and the single shun paper. Therefore, it doesn't wrinkle very much and still has a nice lay down of color and is easy to stretch once you are ready to mount it. Um, so that is called gasenshi paper. It's usually sold in Japan, but they do sell gasenshi in Amazon Japan, or there's other Japanese art suppliers. I think you might be able to get gasenshi on eBay as well. This says Sui Boku ga special paper. And this paper that comes in various sizes. So you would probably want F5 or F6 if you're going to try this. In addition, there's an even I would say kind of fancier variety. by the same company. This one is got a little bit less sizing in it and is less stiff, but it's a very fine kind of eggshell color paper. And this one is also um, of finest quality special gasenshi. This paper is um, this paper is also an excellent paper. Um, then I will in the explanation um, uh, provide the translations for anybody that needs. The next the next kind of paper I'm going to mention is called double shun, a Chinese paper that is two pieces of shun paper glued together, and they don't come unglued. They're pasted together thoroughly, and the paper therefore becomes double thick. It's durable. It doesn't wrinkle very easily, and it's a very nice paper. But double shun is more expensive than single shun. Um, I guess my advice is when you're first doing sumi, use single shun partially because once you control your water issues on single shun, all the other papers will be easy and um, the paper is inexpensive. Then then graduate to the double shun or these nice Japanese papers I've just showed you, and then finally return to the single shun for your work when you've achieved a very high standard, and you'll just get some very beautiful results. So that's my advice. I will mention a few specialty papers and specialty subjects. One of the things that is possible to paint on is what's called a shikishi board. And a shikishi board is pre-mounted paper. And you can get these in America, shikishi board. I've just done one here. This is a little landscape I did. You paint directly on them. And if you've decided that you want to work out your your composition before you paint on it, you just take a similar sheet of paper, maybe in this size. Sometimes they actually make size of paper that's equal to this size. Um, and you can work out your composition on the paper before you try the board. These boards in this size run around $3 to $5 per, and they're excellent to paint on. Maybe a beginner will be hesitant at first to paint on shikishi because uh, I'd say, about 90% of what you're doing is not necessarily going to turn out. You're learning. Um, but when you get a little better, try shikishi boards. You'll find they work out pretty nicely. There's no wrinkling. The uptake on the surface of the board is very good. And these will be mounted by there's special scrolls that they make in Japan and China that these fit into. And these scrolls have like little corners of string here, here, and here, and then you fit them into the scroll, and you can change them out very easily. So these are very fun and easy to work with. You can also frame these by floating them. Which is kind of nice because they have a gold they have a gold area around them, so that's rather pretty in a floated arrangement. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so those are some of the basics, but I'll mention one or two kind of specialties. There is a special kind of paper that is also doesn't have very much sizing in it. So it's equivalent in some respects to painting on single shun, but it's a very interesting paper and it's called dragon cloud paper. And I think I got this dragon cloud paper at Oriental Art Supply. Blue Heron, another supplier in California, has it. This paper has some very nice I would call it filaments or um, uh, basically the effect of this is to have these paper filaments and fibers in the paper. Well, the paper is thin and suck and therefore is handled like a single shun. But what it is nice for is animals or sometimes landscape scenes where you want a kind of like a woodland scene or some textures. So this is a very good paper. In addition, they make single shun that is got color in it already. So the single shun paper that you could order might come in different colors, such as I have one here, green, and another one that I have, but they come in other colors too. I've got just handy. I've got this one is tan, and so this is the same. This is also going to handle like a single shun, but it's tan. Now, and then this one was an interesting one. It's a little bit old. I sometimes get donations from people. This paper is not only toned, it's got flecks of gold. So, what you might use this one for is calligraphy or a kind of a delicate, uh, some delicate artwork. But so you'll occasionally get gold flecked paper as well. What would you do with this kind of paper? You could use white paint on it. That's the difference between the papers that are colored and the white papers. With white papers, you don't use white that often. You might use it a little bit on something already down that's black, but on this paper, you can paint on white paint directly. So cherry blossoms, white cherry blossoms, etc. This paper will be good for that. So let's just do a little bit of a um, sampling of some. Oh, one more thing before I stop talking about papers. I get a lot of students asking me, can I use watercolor paper? Maybe they took a watercolor class and they got leftover paper. And they think it's somehow against the rules to use watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is usually made out of cotton fibers and is used in Western art. But I've looked at the Virginia Criminal Code very closely, and I'm assuming most other states, and no one has made it a crime to use watercolor paper for Sumi-e. And in fact, it can work just as well, but uh, it is more expensive than rice paper. So if you got leftover watercolor paper, fine. But I would say, I would say, I I would not see a reason unless you were trying to just dispose of some paper to use watercolor paper, but you can do it. And I might use watercolor paper if I'm doing particularly thick applications of paint or a type of sumi-e where I'm using mineral pigments or some heavy substance. In that case, yes, watercolor paper definitely can be done. Hold the brush in the same way. So now I'm just going to demonstrate a few of the different handling techniques of the paper. So I'm going to switch the camera now, okay? And we're going to um, show you a little bit about how some of these work. Now, the paper, the paper that I'm going to try first is going to be the single shun paper, but the practice paper would work about like this as well. And so the single shun paper, notice this single shun paper is reflecting. I got some leftover ink from on my under the felt cloth under, so it shows through because the paper is thin. But the now I'm going to show you what people sometimes do wrong first. The thing that they do wrong is they don't wash their brush, or they wash their brush out, but it's too wet. And so then you get this kind of thing. All right, so this is too much water. It just bleeds very strongly. So when that happens, you can't get you can't get a good shape, and it gets a little bit frustrating. So when it comes to a paper such as single shun, I've got to use I've got to use a blotter or another piece of paper to subtract a little bit. I'm going to use this napkin here. Subtract a little bit of water from the brush, then go into your ink, and now you're ready to paint. And you can get a very pleasant shape, but it will still have a soft edge because it doesn't have any sizing in it. The paper doesn't have any resistance to the water. One of the things that single shun paper is excels at is furry animals, because with furry animals you want a soft edge. If you've got an animal such as, oh, I don't know, maybe let's say a rabbit or something, with we want a soft feeling. Well, in that case, okay, I'll put the eyes in. That's not enough ink. I'll put the eyes in lightly, and maybe the mouth in with very touch of my brush. But then what I will do is I'm going to move this just a little bit closer there. Um, I can use the side of the brush and get some really nice soft edges with this paper, which will sort of stand in for fur because the capillary action of the paper is going to help me out, just give me that softness. So that's the big benefit to single shun. And the other big benefit to single shun is if I can do, I think I'm going to move this camera in this direction. See if you can see it. Ah, that's better. All right. Okay. Well, let's get rid of that cord. I don't think we need it. There we go. All right. So you see that I can do really nice big areas and get some really excellent gradations kind of just really easily with this paper. And it's it's just kind of juicy and lovely, and that's why single shun becomes a nice thing to keep in your arsenal. Inexpensive, inexpensive, um, and just really nice to work with. Um, I can't get a sharp edge very easily unless I have the brush very dry. But here's but there's going to be mine. With this kind of paper, I would use, if I do have to do some details, I go in with a very small brush, but it's going to just give me this nice soft edge. And another thing that might be a nice soft thing to depict might be some kind of a clouds of some sort. Clouds would be something like that. So soft edges, this paper is excellent for, but it's also good. Now, for practicing as a beginner, you always have to wipe your brush with this paper. You can still do crispy lines if you have to. It's just that you have to keep your paper very, you have to keep your brush pretty dry, and you can still get a pretty good line if you have to. You can you can do some dry brushy kinds of things, and it will be good. But this paper is got that feature. So let's look at the paper that is the practice paper. We've been calling this one practice paper, and the practice paper is going to practice paper is got a little bit of sizing in it compared to the single shun. And this paper will, if you have sufficient uh, water control, this will give you some clean, crisp edges if you want it without too much trouble. It's a kind of a good compromise paper. So I'm able to maintain a certain amount of control on my shapes. Uh, and you sort of notice the difference between this soft edge and on this paper, there's a little bit more. There's still a little bit of, there's can be a little bit of capillary action. If you're really wet, you can still have some bleeding on this paper. But this paper is somewhat more forgiving. But remember, it's somewhat more expensive than the Chinese single shun paper. So there, this paper is somewhat easier to mount than the Chinese single shun paper. The next paper I'll feature today is going to be the half-sized paper. Half-sized paper um, is going to allow me to do some very fine line work without any trouble. I can maintain I can maintain fine lines, uh, and I don't know what that is, but maybe that's a grapefruit. But I can definitely do lots of details with this paper without worrying too much about about running. And so if you are really uh, not making progress in your art because you're having trouble with your water control issues or something like that, you can use this paper. But it's also a very good paper for um, doing layer painting because it's a little bit, the single shun paper, you'll oftentimes get a hole in your paper by the time you're painting the third layer on. But on this paper, you can you can actually, and some of the water is pooling on the surface. I can go back in, dry the brush off just a little bit, and I can actually move the paper, move the ink around on the paper a little bit. So this is a little closer to a Western watercolor paper because it's got some sizing in it. The other thing about this paper is it's easy to mount. The downsides, there's always an upside and a downside to every material. And in this case, the downside is that the colors are not quite as fresh as the unsized paper. So if you love brilliant effects of color and brilliant tone gradations, single shun is the way to go. And this paper is a little bit better for um, having shapes that are crisp. So if you need something, so if I was doing a fuzzy cat, I would do the single shun paper. But if I was doing one of those Siamese cats where the hair is not as important as the sleek body contours, I might go with this paper instead. So this is a paper that is a, a very good paper for detail. Uh, even more. sizing would be this paper. This is a size paper. It's got little sparklies too. They add a little mica sparklies in this mix. And this paper, like I say, seems like it's very flimsy, but in fact, because of the sizing in it, it's very it's very uh, uh, forgiving in some ways. This paper, you can do lots of very fine work. So suppose I was doing let's do an apple. I can do very fine lines with it. I can layer with it. So let's layer first with of a little bit of maybe I've got some black ink here, but with this, I can actually go back in and subtract because the sizing will let me push that water around on the surface of the paper for a while. Well, that's pretty valuable if you're doing the kind of art where you want to be meticulous. If you want to be meticulous and get all the fine gradations and shading, it's really good. Now the issue is it's not as well suited it's not as well suited for the freestyle because it instead tends to be a little bit tends to be muffled color-wise. You can still get nice colors with it, but they're sort of muffled a little bit. Now, the Ganbi painters even sometimes use a separate brush that's just got some water in it to soften edges, but you can soften edges. Well, if you did this on the practice paper or the single shun paper, you would punch a hole in it. But we're we're painting on sized paper, I can do layer after layer, and it's pretty nice. So uh, a lot of the Ganbi painters, they'll sit there and use the same piece of paper and there might be 8 or 9 sessions of painting. And they'll put down layers and layers and layers. I was playing for time there. I'm going to put a little bit of like red in now on the top. And so with the watercolors, they'll move around pretty nicely. And another technique that you can use on this paper is you can use a technique called terashakomi. Terashakomi is, suppose I'm going to do a branch here. So I've got my branch here. Maybe there's going to be some sticks attached to this, but right now I'm doing the branch. So what I can do is I can put some water down in places and I can actually drop ink in and the ink will pool and run in places on the surface. And the Japanese artists uh, exploited this technique, and it's called terashakomi. I so you and you can then even put a second color in. For example, this one I got black going, but I'm going to put a little bit of stone green in places, and they'll mix and run, and it's pretty cool. And when it dries, there'll be some fusion, some areas where it didn't dry. I can also take a dryish brush and subtract water in places. So that's a cool effect of a sized paper. Um, and let's do one more one more exercise which would be, let me see about where did I put my colored papers? Ah, here they are. So colored shun, is going to be a paper that I can use white. If I am doing a painting with with white, I if I had a white paper, I this isn't going to show up. It's just not going to be, it's not going to show up. That will be no good. So instead, I can put white on and do white blossoms. Or I can basically get a little bit more opaque than usual on this kind of. So here I've got green, but suppose I'm going to do just some blossoms real quick. They'll actually show because I put the white on the top of that. Now, the one caution with colored papers is I do not know how light fast the color on the paper is. I used, I did a really nice drawing some years back of, it was just a portrait on Canson brown paper. It was like a chocolate colored paper. Canson is a very good product. Um, and after about 10 years of having it on my wall, there was noticeable fading. Um, and I feel like people should just beware that these two have not been color tested. We don't know how long that green is going to stay green. So, um, when you do, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it, but I'm saying that when you hang it up, don't put it in someplace particularly light and sunny because it could be that the paint will stay the strong color, but maybe if this green or whatever color was an important part of the design element and now it starts disappearing, you have to be aware that that's a possibility. So here's an example of some paint green on a green surface. And so I'm using pink, but I'm using the white with it. If I didn't use the white, then the red wouldn't show up very well. So with this kind of paper, you can use that. There are many other paper that are colors. I even had a lot of fun with black paper. If you use black paper, well, you're painting with either white or metallic paint. So this is part of the fun of this technique, and it's fun to do these. And I'm just playing right now. So I think I'm going to make that stick a little bit bigger there. Okay. So when that dries, I'll put the little fuzzy parts in the middle, and I've got a masterpiece, right? So here we have another kind of paper. All right. So I'm now switching cameras one more time. So I am teaching at the Art League in Alexandria, the Torpedo Factory. And spring classes are coming up in April if people want to take face-to-face classes. Um, I might in the future be offering classes online. If you're interested in that, send me a text message or, well, send me a message saying you are interested in online classes. Anyway, happy painting.